Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our weekly live stream having to do with the moving and newly introduced legislation across our country. I'm Jax James, NORML State Policy Manager, here to chat with you guys about what is on the horizon. So we're doing it a little different today. Normally we do it alphabetically, but I'm going to switch it up. We're going to do it by topic. So we're going to start by talking about legalization, then decriminalization, new medical cannabis bills, some additional bills that we want to highlight for you guys, and then some legislation that we actually oppose. Now, I encourage everyone to drop your state in the comments, because I'm going over the highlights, the new bills, the moving bills. But if you're in a certain state, there might even be more legislation that you can participate in. You can go to norml.org/act. You'll see the federal actions at the top of the page. And then just underneath that, you'll see a dynamic map of the United States. And you can hover over your state and it will pop up all of the currently active legislation for your state. So today, we have quite a few updates. There's been pre-filing going on, sessions have already begun, and hearings are in the process of moving as well. So let's start with adult use legalization. So in Delaware, HB 1 has been authored. It removes all penalties for possession of the personal use of cannabis, except for those that are under the age of 21. The possession of more than a personal amount or public consumption would still be classified a misdemeanor, and a personal use quantity is defined as 1 ounce or less of flower cannabis, 12 grams or less of concentrated cannabis or cannabis products, and also 750 milligrams or less of Delta 9 THC. So the update here is that HB 1 has already passed the Health and Human Service Development Committee and hopefully will continue to be on the move. So if you're watching in Delaware, make sure you go to our blog today and click on that link so you can let your legislators know that you support a regulated adult use market in the state of Delaware. Now, Hawaii has quite a few bills that have been filed having to do with legalization. We've got HB 237 and its companion Senate Bill 375. And this would allow those 21 and older to purchase the equivalent of 4 ounces of cannabis within a consecutive period of 15 days. Adults would be able to home cultivate up to 10 plants. And there are also provisions for equity and retail licensing, as well as provisions in the bill that would expand home cultivation rights to out-of-state patients. Now, which thinking about that, that's like the most excellent reciprocity I've heard about in a while. Now, House Bill 452 puts a non-binding referendum on the ballot. Shall the state of Hawaii allow the sale and use of recreational cannabis in the state? Senate Bill 669 legalizes the personal cultivation and use of the small amount of cannabis, and HB 1216 legalizes and regulates up to 30 grams of cannabis for adults. Lastly, HB 1425 legalizes the purchase and possession of 2.85 grams of cannabis flower. That sure is specific. So if you would like to support this legislation in Hawaii, I strongly encourage you to participate in that action alert today. Then we also have another bill called Senate File 73, and that is out of Iowa, and it seeks to legalize the possession, manufacturing, delivery, and retail sales to those 21 and older. You'd be able to possess 30 grams of flower, 5 grams of concentrate, 500 milligrams of THC in infused products, and non-residents would be able to possess half of those amounts. No more than 1 ounce of marijuana or its equivalent in a retail marijuana product may be purchased per transaction. Now, in Maryland, as you guys know, under state law, there is a medical program, and simple possession and home cultivation of those 21 and older were already legalized via passage of separate legislation that becomes effective on July 1. For the companion bills HB 556 and Senate Bill 516, those 21 and older would be able to purchase cannabis. It would even make where the business cannabis is a tongue twister today. Cannabis businesses could serve both medical patients and adults. The bill would create an avenue for on-site consumption licenses where 21 and over can purchase and consume in a social setting. And the legislation institutes certain parental and personal protections for medical and adult use consumers. Further, the bill makes some changes to the allowance of registered medical cannabis patients, increasing the amount of possession to 4 ounces of flower, 36 grams of THC-infused products, and up to 4 plants for home cultivation. Now, that's important because currently patients are not allowed to cultivate plants in their home. Additionally, the bill creates a social equity commission to allow cannabis business licensees that have been disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs to take priority. And it also would allow for a 6% tax on cannabis sales with a 1% increase every year, ending with a 10% tax by 2028. Now, in Minnesota, there is companion legislation HF 100 and SF 73. HF 100 has actually passed 6 committees in the House and is on to its next hearing scheduled for tomorrow. Now, this would allow adults 21 and older to purchase 2 ounces of cannabis and home cultivate up to 8 plants, 4 of which may be mature. In addition to creating a system of licensed private cannabis businesses, both municipalities and counties would be able to operate governmental dispensaries. Those with prior convictions would have their records automatically expunged, and this legislation would also allow for on-site consumption lounges as well as cannabis delivery services. However, this also does contain language banning the sale of unregulated synthetic cannabinoids, which is consistent with the Board of Pharmacy rules that were put into place last year. I would also like to highlight that the legislation promotes social equity and inclusion among licensing, and they do this by prioritizing underrepresented populations, such as those who live in low-income neighborhoods, military veterans who lost their honorable status because of a cannabis-related offense. So that's some good legislation in the state of Minnesota. Let's talk about Nebraska. LB 634 has it legalizes adults 21 and older to possess 1 ounce of cannabis flower or its equivalent and cultivate up to 6 plants at home. It also institutes certain parental protections and pathways for the expungement of records for those that have been convicted for nonviolent cannabis offenses. This bill is scheduled for a hearing this week in the Judiciary Committee on the 9th. So if you live in Nebraska, definitely make sure that you participate in this action alert, letting your legislators know that you definitely want them to pass it out of committee. Now, Tennessee has 2 bills, Senate Bill 168 and House Bill 88, which create this regulated cannabis market for 21 and up. Those of that age would be able to use, possess, and transport up to 60 grams of flower and 15 grams of concentrate. The bill also allows for cultivation of up to 12 marijuana plants at one's residence. It makes nonviolent, non-felony marijuana offenses eligible for immediate release from incarceration, probation, or parole, and it would take effect on January 1, 2024 if it successfully passes. Now, before I come to the reduced penalties or the decriminalization portion of the legislation, I'm going to pop back over to the comments and just check and see where you guys are watching from. All right, let's see. We've got Oregon, Virginia, Michigan, Florida, Ohio. I've got some bills for you. Minnesota, we just talked about what's going on there. Illinois, Washington. I've got some bills in Washington and also Maryland. We've got some in there as well. Okay, awesome. Let me come back and let us discuss penalty reduction. So we'll start with the state of Georgia. Senate Bill 30 wishes to increase the amount of cannabis an individual can possess on their person while still qualifying as a low-level misdemeanor violation from 1, which it was previously, to 2 ounces. Additionally, Senate Bill 73 seeks to substitute civil penalties in place of criminal penalties for certain offenses relating to manufacturing, cultivating, possessing with the intent to distribute outside of the regulated market in the state of, excuse me, I didn't bring my water. And I need my water. Additionally, House Bill 280 amends state law so that citizens found, excuse me, this is in Maryland. I said Georgia first, but Senate Bill 73 is Maryland and House Bill 280 is Maryland. And it would amend the law so that anyone with over 1.5 ounces would have a civil fine rather than a criminal penalty. This is because the legal market allows you to possess up to 1.5 ounces, and therefore over that amount used to be a criminal offense. Now it would be a civil offense with a fine not exceeding $250. In Iowa, Senate File 178 seeks to decriminalize the possession of 5 grams of cannabis. And in Nebraska, we also have a decriminalization bill, LB 22, which seeks to remove marijuana from the CSA, or the Controlled Substance Act. If passed, the bill would totally depenalize the use and possession of marijuana by removing marijuana from the controlled substance list and renaming and repurposing a fund for the oversight of the cultivation of hemp. Now, by striking the references to cannabis in the state CSA, the bill would eliminate existing criminal penalties for most all marijuana-related activities. Now, while it's unrealistic to think that lawmakers would ultimately agree to this option, this bill definitely serves as a starting point to begin the important legislative discussions regarding further reducing the possession and creating a regulated commercial cannabis market. In New York, SB 722 seeks to create civil penalties for minors who sell, possess, use, or distribute under 3 ounces of flour or less than 24 grams of concentrates. If passed, civil penalties would be imposed. Currently, criminal penalties are being imposed for any person under the age of 21 who knowingly or unlawfully sells. In Tennessee, HB 309 decriminalizes the possession of the personal amount of cannabis to $25 or community service. And the bill defines personal quantity as 1 ounce or less of cannabis and 5 grams or less of concentrate, as well as an infused product with less than 1,000 milligrams of Delta 9 THC. Now, in Delaware, there's also HB 2, which would regulate the sales there, and you can participate in that. HB 1 and HB 2 are kind of, I don't want to call them companion bills, but they work together. Now I'm going to come back over the comments real quick, and we'll talk about medical next. South Carolina NORML says the compassionate care update. Senate of Medical Affairs will take up the compassionate care next week. Yes, we will get to that just momentarily. We've got some people walking from Texas, where I am right now, in Austin. I have electricity, so I feel really thankful. Not everybody does still from that ice storm last week. It was a crazy week last week, you guys. And for some people, it still is. Now, in Nebraska, we have a medical access bill, LB 588, which would allow for a program where qualifying patients could have up to 2.5 ounces of flour or 2,000 milligrams of THC concentrate. And that bill is scheduled for a hearing this week in the Judiciary Committee on the 9th. Now, in New Hampshire, HB 431 would permit qualified patients and designated caregivers to home cultivate for therapeutic use. They would be allowed to have up to 6 plants, 3 of which could be mature. Under existing law, qualified patients must purchase cannabis from retailers and are not allowed to home cultivate. But recently, the New Hampshire Therapeutic Cannabis Medical Oversight Board voted to endorse legalizing medical marijuana home cultivation. So if you live in New Hampshire, make sure you participate in this medical home cultivation effort there. In New York, Senate Bill 263 or 2263 seeks to protect medical marijuana patients from eviction based on their consumption. In North Carolina, Senate Bill 3 seeks to create a medical access program. And in South Dakota, SD 1 would expand the medicals program to the following conditions: HIV/AIDS, ALS, MS, cancer and its treatments, anything associated with severe chronic pain, nausea, severe vomiting, and wasting diseases, as well as Crohn's, epilepsy, seizure, glaucoma, or PTSD. Now, SD1 has passed the Senate and heads to the House. In Tennessee, we have 2 bills that would work to create a cannabis program there. Oh, wait, I covered that one already. Let's skip to Washington. House Bill 1563 seeks to provide legal protections for those who possess a valid state authorization but haven't yet received their card. Additionally, Senate Bill 5608 would protect medical cannabis patients by allowing them to use copies of their ID card as a valid authorization of use. In addition, it would protect those that have not yet received their cards but are registered. Some additional bills that we want to highlight out of Missouri, we've got a HB 830, which would prevent odor as being probable cause for law enforcement to search home, vehicle, or private property. In New York, SB 3289 allows certain qualifying incarcerated individuals to be granted new or reduced sentences. Currently, incarcerated individuals can complete a court-ordered program to be released early. And this law would expand that provision, allow for offenders to be placed in a court-ordered drug and alcohol treatment program to reduce their time on their sentence. Now in Ohio, we've got Senate Bill 226 that would amend the traffic safety law so that trace levels of THC could no longer be convicted of operating a motor vehicle while under the influence. Under existing law, persons are guilty if they even have trace amounts of THC in their blood or THC metabolites in their urine, even if they passed any impairment tests. Because THC, and particularly THC metabolites, can be detected for days or even weeks after you have consumed, this law criminalizes removes the criminalization for anyone who consumes cannabis and also state authorized medical cannabis patients. In Washington, we've got SB 5123, which prohibits an employer from discriminating against a job applicant solely for their off-the-clock cannabis use. This bill has passed the Senate Committee on Labor and Commerce. Washington or West Virginia has Senate Bill or House Bill 2771, which removes marijuana from the Controlled Substance Act for their Drug-Free Workplace Act. So it would allow for the removal of the screening requirement. Okay, coming back over here. Someone else talking about Austin. When will we legalize Austin? So guys, in Texas, our marijuana laws are governed at the state level. And the only way to change a law at the state level is to go through the legislature. We don't have the ability to collect signatures, petition, and put it on the ballot for a vote. It has to go through the legislature to change that law. And so to completely change the law in Texas, we have to do it through the legislature. However, many cities like Austin have been deprioritizing this type of arrest and testing for many, many years. And now recently, Austin even passed a local ordinance because it's a certain of a home rights city where they can, within certain discretion, decide to no longer budget for X, Y, and Z. So in Texas or in Austin, Texas, if APD pulls you over and you have cannabis on you, they will not arrest you. However, that does not count for DPS, sheriffs, non-local police efforts. So while it is nice for those who live in these cities that have passed these types of ordinances or deprioritized, it does not go all the way in ensuring that you won't be arrested. Now, legalization that we oppose, two bills out of Washington are trying to put THC caps on concentrates. HB 1641 would create a THC cap of 35% on all cannabis concentrates sold and would create fines for businesses that do not comply. Additionally, the bill sets laws and regulations for the advertising and marketing of the adult use of cannabis concentrates over 35% with a mandatory health warning on the product. HB 1642 creates a cap of 35% total THC and seeks to raise public awareness of the dangers of high-potency cannabis concentrates. So if you live in Washington, definitely participate in those action alerts. So I'm going to come over here to my handy-dandy spreadsheet. If you are in Alaska, there's a bill having to do with the release of conditions. I saw some people from Arizona. There's a bill about adding autism as a condition and also getting insurance coverage. There's quite a few bills in Connecticut, three of which we oppose, which have to do with repealing legalization, THC caps, and also allowing now for odor to be cause for search. let me see. I think we also had some people from Illinois. There's both a bill that we support that would remove odor as a cause for search, and also one that would create expungement as an automatic provision. I believe I also saw Indiana in the comments, and there's legislation having to do both with legalizing adult use market, decriminalization, and also medical cannabis. So quite a bit of movement on bills in Indiana. Kentucky, I think I saw y'all in the comments as well. There's legislation on legalization, decrim, and medical cannabis. Let me come over here and see if I missed anyone over here in the comments. Okay. In Texas, so my home state, I'm seeing some of y'all here. There is quite a few bills, y'all, quite a few. And some more have been filed, and we will be adding those to these actions in the next day or so. But there is legislation, about 4 or 5 bills having to do with improving our medical cannabis program, which is currently fairly limited. There are also quite a few bills about creating an adult use market, and also bills having to do with both fully decriminalizing the possession of flower and concentrates, as well as just reducing the penalties. Okay, let me see if I missed anybody else. I went over Ohio. There's no bills currently in Michigan. I see someone from Virginia. Virginia NORML has a really great page on their website where you can look at all of the current legislation and click on their action alerts there. So definitely want to plug Virginia NORML on that. We went over Maryland. Okay, I think that is everything here today, guys. So I want to go ahead and remind all of you that perhaps you're watching this now or later and you didn't hear me talk about a bill from your state. You can go to norml.org/act, and all you have to do is just scroll to that dynamic map, hover over your state, and it'll show you any of the active legislation there. Then you click the link that says email your legislator, and you can participate in our action alerts there. Also, I encourage you, if you're watching, to go and check out our chapters at norml.org. There's a lot of chapters across the country that you can get involved with and have an impact both at the local and state level near where you live. And of course, right now we are really crunching a bunch of bills right now. So if you'd like to donate to support the work that we're doing as a patient and consumer advocacy nonprofit, we really would appreciate it. I know that we have literally read hundreds of bills over the last week and created dozens of action alerts accompanying them. So definitely want to encourage you guys to support us by either donating or becoming a member. So I wanted to thank everybody for tuning in today, and I will be back same bat time, same bat channel, aka lunch-ish on Tuesdays. So definitely look forward to seeing you guys next week, and have a wonderful Tuesday.